Support for the Bittersweet Life comes from its listeners. We are trying to reach a goal of $1,000 a month in support over at patreon.com/thebittersweetlife podcast. That amount of money will help get us on a stable footing and will let us hire the help that we need to keep this show going. I want to thank Dana, Drek, Sydney, and Linda for increasing your current pledges. Thank you for hearing the call and helping us reach that goal. And I also want to thank Savannah and Maureen for being new members to Patreon. If you love this show, please support it for as little as $5 a month, less than a cup of coffee if you're in the United States. You can keep this show on the air for another year. You'll also get to hear 2 bonus episodes every month, receive handwritten thank you notes in the mail, live meetups, and so much more. You can read all the details at patreon.com/thebittersweetlifepodcast. There is a link in the show notes. Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katie Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katie Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Tiffany's in Rome. Katie is in Seattle. She's an expat. I'm a repat. Am I a repat still? I've been gone from Rome for like 10 years now, but I guess so. Once you move abroad, you always have that within you. Today, though, we're going to be talking about something that was spurred on by the interview that I did a couple weeks ago with Glynis McNichol with her book, I'm Mostly Here to Enjoy Myself. And I'm not going to rehash any of the major themes in that book, but she did have one line in there that I put an arrow to that said, "Is this true?" And I thought I would ask you about it. And then I, of course, I ended up doing a deeper dive myself into it, so I have other things to share with you. But this was just a kind of a line that she throws in mid-book. And she's talking about leisure time. And she says that, "I have learned that the Latin word for business is negotium, which translates into the absence of leisure. The Romans did not see leisure time as the slim reward for work, but work as a negative space defined by leisure." Now that was the statement that I was like, is that true? I wonder if that's true. I should ask Tiffany if that's actually true. The Romans did not see leisure time as the slim reward for work, but work as a negative space defined by leisure. Leisure was more important than work.
I always say I'm not a huge expert on ancient Rome. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know probably more than the average person, but it's not kind of my area of expertise within Roman history and art. But I do remember learning that there was a particular Roman profession called the client. Now, don't think of it as our modern word for client. They were people who were they were paid for their vote. And it wasn't considered corruption back in those days. It probably was, but it was more like, you paid your constituents. And obviously not everyone was allowed to vote, and so your vote was probably more valuable. But there was this whole subset, and I hope I'm not getting any of this wrong because, like I said, this is not my area of expertise. But what I understand is there was this whole subset of the society that all they did was basically sit around in the Roman Forum and sort of wait until they had to vote about something or wait until the person that they worked for. And so it was backwards. Like if you were the client, you were not the one paying. You were the one being paid by a politician until maybe they needed you or needed to talk to you or something. So, that's why you'll find the board games in the Roman Forum because people were sitting around. And I think there was a lot less work being done in ancient Rome by citizens. Now, there was a lot of work being done by slaves. But if you want to talk about the actual Roman citizens, I don't think that they worked that much, no.
And the board games you're talking about are something we've referred to in this show a long time ago, which is if you go look in certain parts of the forum, I don't know if you can actually see any of them if you tour down there.
You can.
Oh, you can. So in the marble, there would be like things etched into the marble. And what those were basically like a game board, and you could bring your dice or your whatever else cards or whatever your accoutrement that goes with these game boards, but the game boards were actually carved into the marble, so you could sit around on the
Hmm.
marble steps and play games with each other, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I
kind of
went
the equivalent of I think there's chessboards, permanent chessboards in Washington Square Park.
right,
And there are also chessboards in the pools of the baths in Budapest. There are little seats where you can sit on the edge of this steaming hot bath, and there's little chessboards, and you have to bring your own players,
oh, that's nice.
your own pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, in downtown Seattle, they with certain problematic parks, they have now quote unquote activated those parks, and you can play ping pong and cornhole and chess and other things like that. They just put out all the equipment for it during the day to try to encourage more people to come and actually be in that park and play in that park. So it's not quite as convenient for, I don't know, people to do unsundry things, I suppose. Well, of course, I learned about the board games in the forum from historian Mary Beard, who is a specialist about ancient Rome. And I happen to have one of her new books, new-ish. It's not that new anymore. A couple of years old, called Emperor of Rome by Mary Beard. It's all about the ancient Roman emperors. And of course, there's a whole section in there about how they spent their time off. And so, since I got interested in this question, I've made some notes. There's a paragraph I want to read to you. But first, I want to tell you about what might have passed as a Roman leisure pastime for emperors. And she opens this chapter by talking about a particular emperor named Commodus, 192 CE. Are you familiar with this fellow?
I am familiar. He was the one who was obsessed with gladiatorial games,
That's
and
correct.
he would dress as if he was Hercules with a lion skin over his head, and he would parade around the Colosseum and, act like a gladiator.
Yeah, from what I read in this book, seems like a bit of a piece of work, this guy.
Yeah.
She refers to this time when he, in the ultimate act of Roman leisure, he hosted 14 days of bloody shows at the Colosseum. The very first day opened with him personally killing 100 bears, which sounds very dangerous and so wasteful of nice bears. But he apparently did not do this like up close and personal gladiator style. They had constructed special gangways up and above the bears for him to walk along, and he just threw javelins down. As Mary Beard put it, it was more of a tribute to his accuracy than to his bravery. And then late in the later days, in the 13 other bloody days to follow, he killed many more animals, many of which had already been imprisoned by nets. So, once they were in a net, then he'd go up and, I don't know, javelin them. Tigers, hippos, elephants. Apparently he beheaded an ostrich at one point. And then she said that, he was not the only emperor who liked to feel like they were a great gladiator or like to imitate other great gladiators. She also cites Caligula, which according to her says that he was said to have killed a professional gladiator who was armed with a dummy sword.
Very, very brave
Yeah,
and
very
valiant.
brave. I mean, it is interesting with this much distance to think that that kind of blood sport would have been entertaining. Right now, with the state of the world as it is, I think most people would be horrified to witness the killing of 100 bears just on an afternoon for a laugh.
Well, why do people go to see horror films, Katie? You know it's fake. Okay, sure. But when you're watching the movie, it doesn't feel fake. And your reactions, they've proven this, the physical reactions that you have when you're watching horror films are similar to what kind of reaction you would have in real life with the racing heart and the dry throat and whatever. You feel like it's happening when you're watching it. So I don't actually think that it's that much has changed. I think there's definitely more of a respect for animals today, thank God, but that's not across the board. And lots of people still do trophy hunting and kill tigers and elephants and lions but most people I would say don't approve of that. But I think there's still, I mean, the popularity of the true crime stories. I mean, people love it. People love watching stuff about death.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are more squeamish. not everybody wants to see the blood. Some people really like to see the blood and like the head being chopped open. I can't handle that, but I do like a good murder mystery. So even
Hmm.
clearly there's something that is entertaining about people getting killed.
Yeah, no, I get that. I definitely get that. And I know that we're living in a totally different society than what was happening in 192 CE. But I mean, to just sit there and watch your emperor randomly kill a bunch of bears, I mean, it's not like he's wrestling these bears. That would feel like something was at stake, you know?
Yeah, but by the time you got that late in the empire, I think you kind of had to it was kind of
Just be like,
expected.
woo, way to
Yeah,
go.
it's like when Kim Jong-un comes out and everybody's like, "Oh," cheering
He's
for
on his
him.
58th bear. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that it's that bad, but I think some of the emperors, were pretty horrible, and
Hmm.
you had to show your respect. But an interesting thing about ancient Rome is that entertainment was almost like a right. It was like every citizen had a ticket. They had a little tessera, which granted them access to the Colosseum, and it was free. It was separated by, of course, social status and, of course, gender. The women had the worst seats, the women and the slaves. But, you could go, and I don't know if you could go every day. I don't know exactly how it worked because clearly the whole population of the city couldn't fit in the Colosseum, and not everybody's going every day, but they must have had like alternating days or something. But you could just go. And think about the baths. Claudia and I went to a bath complex on Sunday. It was kind of a belated anniversary and his birthday celebration since we didn't really celebrate either. A place that we've been planning to go, and it's kind of modeled after an ancient Roman bathhouse,
Hmm.
loosely they have a lot of the same aspects, the steam room and the cold plunge and the hot pool and lots of falling water that you can use to like massage your shoulders. And it got me thinking about the ancient Roman baths, the baths of Caracalla and Diocletian. There were many of these, and it was such a part of Roman daily life.
Hmm.
And they would spend hours there, sometimes on a daily basis. I'm like, how much free time do you have to spend 3 or 4 hours every day getting massaged, swimming in a cold pool, swimming in a hot pool, going in the steam room, getting a scrub, reading because they had libraries there, playing a game of tennis afterwards? I mean, it was like a glorified like athletic club and spa all rolled into one, and you just hang out there all afternoon or all morning if you were a woman. That just goes to show you how much leisure time they had.
Yeah. I mean, they probably, I mean, if what you're saying is true, where, the casual Roman citizen was not working, the slaves were, but the casual Roman citizen was sort of sitting about much of the time.
I mean, I think women were probably working a
Right.
lot more
Women,
because they had
slaves.
kids and they were cooking and cleaning if they didn't have the money to have slaves. And I mean, like I said, I don't
Yeah. Not your expertise.
I think maybe this is like a middle class if there was such a thing as a middle class.
Yeah.
I don't think that the poorest of the poor probably had that much leisure time, but
Hmm.
this sort of middle area where people just sort of survived and picked up money here and there and went to the games and went to the baths and hung out and sat
Yeah.
around in the forum half the day.
Well, I mean, now with all the modern technology that we have, I mean, the idea with the modern technology is that it is meant to open up space within our day. The dishwasher, the washing machine, the microwave, all of these things. The lawnmower. I don't know. All of these things that are supposed to make day to day life easier, and arguably do make day to day life easier.
The washing machine,
I mean,
I think the washing machine changed lives.
hmm.
That changed the life of every poor and lower middle class woman on the planet, who was able to get one.
Yes.
Changed their life.
Yeah, I mean, for
That takes
sure. I mean, even where I'm living right now was the first time I'd had a dishwasher in years. And I do have to say, it's so easy to forget how much time I used to spend washing dishes now that I have the luxury of just throwing them in a machine. But, so arguably we do have more time. Not everybody, but some people would have 3 hours to sit around in an evening, at a fancy club or whatever. But do we? I mean, what do we do with that leisure time these days?
the TV,
The
social
TV.
media,
Yeah.
looking at your phone, scrolling through your phone. I mean, all you have to do is look at your screen time at the end of the day to be like, oh my God, how many hours did I waste? And of course, not all of that time is wasted because we all do productive things on our phones. We're not
Yes.
just scrolling. But I think if you added it up, we all do take a lot of leisure time. It's maybe like in drips and drabs and it's hidden and we don't notice it instead of like,
Hmm.
I don't know, saving it up for something good and worthwhile.
I mean, I wish
Would be
that there
better.
were baths like that I could just go sit around in at night chatting with people and playing tennis or what have you.
Tiffany dropping in just to remind you that it is your last chance to join our amazing Rome trip that is coming up in October. If you have been dreaming of going to Rome, if it's been on your bucket list forever, or you just can't wait to go back, but you have procrastinated on planning your travels, well, you have one last chance to come with us. We will take care of everything for you. All you have to do is book your flight from the 6th to the 12th of October, and we will take care of the rest from a beautiful hotel to all of the tickets to all of the sites, tours with us, personalized, intimate, fascinating tours with us every single morning of your stay, suggestions for restaurants, insider tips, everything you could hope for a truly special and unforgettable time in Rome. All you have to do is get in touch with us and let us know that you're interested. We'll give you all of the details. You can email us at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com and we will take care of everything. So get in touch and we hope that you will join us. Bye.
I want to read you a paragraph from this book by Mary Beard, Emperor of Rome. That's also about time off, and just see what you think. She said, Roman writers often speculated on how their emperors spent their leisure, or time off, as we would put it. In some ways, those are misleading phrases to apply to the world of any autocrat, ancient or modern. In the life of a monarch, the division between work and leisure is always blurred. Whatever the emperor did in any context, in bed or on the battlefield, in the Senate or on the sports field, necessarily reflected on the character of his rule.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what he's doing, it's reflecting on who he is as a leader. She goes on, yet there was a difference between pen pushing, the speaking in the Senate, or the judging of legal cases, and what he chose to do when he was free from official duties. Roman terms do not exactly match our own, but there was still a significant contrast between otium, normally translated as leisure, but more accurately, what you did when you were in control of your own time, and its opposite, negotium, or what you had to do when you were not in control of your time.
That's an interesting way to put it, to think about it.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. But then she does give a list of like some of the things that emperors like to do besides killing 100 bears. I could read some of these out. I'm not going to read all the details about who it's attributed to, but I just thought some of the variety of what they might be into. And she does note that some of these things they would only do in private, either with themselves or like their closest inner circle. Like they would never just do this sitting out on the back porch or something of their epic palace. But she says, of course, the study of literature and oratory, writing poetry, playing music, a wholesome exercise like boxing, wrestling, running, or swimming, and painting. She says, it's hard to imagine any emperor of Rome being a watercolorist, but that certain emperors are noted to have been watercolorists, which is interesting to picture. Uh, and then she says that some people had more idiosyncratic hobbies. I thought you'd appreciate this one. Tiberius liked to ask his dinner guests tricky questions based on his recent readings. So, like, for instance, what was the name of Hecuba's mother? And then Titus, she credits with having a sideline in imitating other people's handwriting.
Okay. Interesting hobby.
Yeah, he could do a lot of things with that, I suppose. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of fun to read some of their other things. And then she does talk about the games and that gaming was a big thing that even emperors would fall into, and a lot of gambling. Also interesting to think about you gambling with the leader of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Hard to win, it would seem.
Hard
but,
to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was there a specific reason that this topic besides just reading this phrase? It's something going on in your life that you're thinking a lot about leisure at the moment?
Well, I'm probably thinking about it a lot at the moment because I'm not doing much in the way of leisure lately. Although researching leisure apparently was part of me having leisure time.
Well, well, I don't mean to interrupt you. I want to hear what else you have to say, but I think an interesting idea, sub idea of this is like if it's true that your leisure time is what you do when you're in control of your time, and your non-leisure time is when you're not in control, what happens to people who are self-employed?
Right.
Because people who are self-employed, we are in control of our time, but we're choosing to use our time in a productive manner that is maybe not what we would do if we, were independently wealthy.
Right.
But we, it's a kind of gray area.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Because, yeah, the truth of the matter is both you and I have jobs where we are being paid by outside people, but we are able to kind of fit them into whatever our day, however we want to use, whenever we want to use the hours to accomplish that work that we have agreed to do. That is based on like whatever else we have going on that day, which is interesting. So it is like we're in control of it, but it's also stuff that we would not necessarily do. I mean, we're also in the weird position of, having projects like this very podcast that for the most part don't pay to the level of how much work it is,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so in that way, I mean, it would be very easy to write it off as, I don't know,
A hobby.
a passion project. But it certainly doesn't feel that way, and I know that like some of
No.
that is like what we have put on it ourselves. We kind of bring a work responsibility to it, but I guess that is a choice, I don't know. I mean, it is a choice for us to spend all that time.
It's a choice. It's a
Yeah.
choice, just like deciding to write a book when you
Right.
do not have a publisher yet is a choice, but that does not mean that it is leisure time.
Right.
I believe it is work, even if it is not, you're not being paid for it yet. It's still
Yes.
work.
Yeah. But it's a very easy thing for people to write off or
Yeah.
to not take seriously. Yeah. I mean, I kind of have two of those projects going because I'm trying to finish a book. And of course, we have this show. And I think that those two things are more important to me than the other things that I'm doing that are actually bringing in some income, like the things that I say yes to because I must survive. I must eat food and pay to live somewhere. I don't know, but that's interesting. And so I guess I think about it a lot lately because here it is, it's summer. As I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm looking outside. It's a beautiful sunny day with like a nice blue sky. And I don't have any plans today that do not involve work, whether self-imposed or otherwise. And I do find that because I have these projects, like trying to finish this book and trying to keep this show going, that I'm constantly clearing the decks to try to make those two things happen. So what I find myself doing is, editing Monday's show of this podcast at 8:30 at night so that in the morning I can be free for a couple hours to work on the book before I have to start working on this thing for this company that hired me to do a thing, and then it just feels like I'm constantly like trying to make the space to do the things that are, so anyway, so maybe that has me dreaming
Listen,
about leisure.
kudos to you for making this space because that is an act of courage. That is an act of belief in yourself. So I think that's a huge deal that you are making the space. And it's something that I have not been doing recently, making the space to write. I know it's hard. I feel you, but you should be proud of yourself. That's
Thanks.
my little
Thanks.
mini pep talk.
Okay.
On the other hand, creative work takes inspiration, and it is very hard to get inspiration when you are only working. And you need to be out there. You need to be daydreaming. You need to be taking walks. You need to be seeing friends. You need to be seeing art because that is how you're going to refill your well, which is where you're going to get your ideas and where you're going to get your inspiration from. So if you're only working, I mean, it's a total vicious circle because it's like, well, if I do all those things, I'm not gonna have time to write. Okay, I know, I get it. my life as well. But I do believe that you need, especially writers, but any creative person, I think that you need downtime. You need time when you're like, literally, I'm just going to lie on the floor and stare at the dust mites. And, or I'm just going to take a walk with my own thoughts, because that is sometimes when your best ideas come to you, I think.
That's true. I mean, I will say that I always make time for a walk. Most days of the week, I walk for at least an hour. So I am still doing that.
That's good.
But it's funny. I I was listening to this other podcast that I really enjoy by a man named Ronald Young Jr. It's called Leaving the Theater, and it just is basically movie reviews. He'll go see whatever movie has just come out, and he'll tell you what he thinks about it. And I listen to it even when I have never heard of the movie and I have no intention of ever seeing it. So that tells you something about how much I enjoy his opinion. But that said, it's so funny because the other day I almost wrote to him to have permission to air it because it illustrated the frustration that is being an independent art person so well. He's doing a pitch for the Patreon at the end of the episode. And right now, he is basically producing that show completely by himself. He used to have people who helped him with it, couldn't afford it anymore. Now he's doing everything by himself. And, usually he puts out this really lovely pitch that's like, maybe you don't like how this podcast is edited. Maybe you think it could be done better. If you help me, if you support my Patreon, then I'll be able to actually pay somebody to help me do this. But until then, I'm going to have to edit it myself. And I'm getting better, but, I'm no expert. He'll usually put out something very reasonable. And then last episode, he was basically like, the money that you give to Patreon, well, it goes to, and then he just pauses and he goes, well, it goes to me. I mean, because frankly, you're going to be here next week, right? You're going to listen to this again, right? I make this every week. I'm doing it all the time. It's me. I'm the one doing this. Are you going to show up next week? Do you believe in this show? Then maybe think about donating to it. It's just basically that, like, you're just hitting your head against the wall because you're like, I am putting in so much effort. I know you are listening to me. I'm asking you for $2. What is the problem?
I know.
And it was just such a wonderful, I wanted to write to him and ask if I could play it because it was still reasonable, but it was such a wonderful illustration of how, you can keep going along and being like, I feel good about this. I'm making, and then every now and then you're just like, oh, for God's sake, when is there going to be any reward for any of this? And I thought that was funny and charming. And of course, jumped on Patreon and became a supporter of his because I do agree. And he's right. I am going to show up next time he puts out an episode, and I am going to listen to it. So anyway, I do think there is an odd thing about being kind of outside of the normal working life because it is so easy. You have like that belief in yourself that you're talking about. You have to just maintain it infinitely. And you have people all the time who are saying things like, even Derek is guilty of this. He's got a 9-to-5 job and he'll come home and, I'll ask him about his day and I'll tell him about what I did with mine and he'll just say, must be nice.
Oh, I hate that. I hate my husband does the same. He doesn't use those exact words, but it's similar attitude.
Yeah. And you're like, I am working 6 days a week for like 12 hours a day. Not all the time, but, often. And so you're just like, must be nice.
Must be nice to actually like end your day.
It must be nice to actually make a decent paycheck for how hard you work every day,
Yeah. Yeah.
But, again, like but his point is, I don't have control of my schedule and you do.
And that is a choice.
And that is something that I am jealous of, and I get that. I totally get that. And
it is a choice. It's a choice. We all make these choices and there are trade-offs and, you're not going to make the same salary. I mean, I hope that eventually you will. We both will.
Must be nice.
But, there are trade-offs.
Yeah.
You don't get paid vacation from the Bittersweet life.
That's true.
You don't get bonuses. You don't get a company car.
There's no medical.
There's no dental.
There's no retirement.
Yeah. So there are trade-offs and we all make our choices. And it's not really fair to be like, oh, I wish I had the control of my time. Well, then, quit your job and start a project. But first, let's pay off the house.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, I mean, the good news is that no matter what happens, I'm not going to go out and kill 100 bears this afternoon. So,
Yeah, well, yeah. So
So
you're
that's
doing better
something.
than Commodus.
yes. Yes, and that I'm still alive today to try something new again tomorrow.
I'm wondering if we can continue this conversation next week and talk about the differences between modern Italians and modern Americans in how they see leisure time and how they use their leisure time. And, our conversation with Laurel kind of triggered this in my head, the way she works in both places. And, she had some things to say about like when I'm in the States, my work mode is like this. When I'm in Italy, my work mode is like this. So that might be an interesting topic. We could continue on this theme.
Yes, indeed. And we are also kind of continuing on this theme in the very first bonus episode that's happening over on the Patreon in August. The first one that's going to come out in August is also sort of related to this question of what we do with our downtime, in the sense that something Tiffany's been doing is so embarrassing she doesn't actually want to talk about it on the main show. And so we talk about it over on the Patreon. 2 bonus episodes every month. And that's the first one in August. All right, well, we should leave it there. And until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katie Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Join us again. Bye.